I'm so stressed out right now. I'm going to take a few breaths during the theme song. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pot Smoking Mom Show. You know what we talk about. We moms, we smoke pot. Thank you for being here. Thank you for lending us your ears. We really appreciate you. If this is your first time, thank you for joining us. I'm Sunny D, along with my homegirl, Captain J.
Hello, hello.
Hey, listen, if you like our show, if you end up sticking around and listening to the whole episode, please subscribe to it, rate us, write a cute little comment, share us. We love when you share our stuff. We appreciate it. Just be friends with us. You can reach us at potsmokingmoms.com. That's our website. All of our shit's there. It's easy. Just go there. We asked, what are we smoking today?
I have some Super Silver Haze from True Leaf.
Ooh, Super Silver Haze.
Yeah.
I have some sherbet.
Sativa, which is not usually my thing, but
oh yeah,
that's what I got right now.
We got also Dutch Hawaiian, but I'm doing good with the hybrids. I like this Binsky sherbet hybrid. Cheers.
Cheers.
We invite you to smoke with us if you
got them, light them.
Yeah, Good podcast. A choice to do it while smoking your weed.
Yes.
Good job. Nice job.
It's like a part of our sesh.
Yes, it's like, yes, we're here together. So we got a really great interview today. We got Chris Sunshine from Sunshine Cannabis. If you're a local here in Florida, you know that he is one of the major names out here with True Leaf. So we'll talk to him a little bit later on in the show. We got a PSM Disney trip.
I had to add this in there. I was like, we got to tell our peoples to meet us out there.
Yeah, we talked to our patrons, and enough of them said yes to where we're going to do this.
Yes.
Pot Smoking Mom Disney trip, February 11th through the 13th. If you want to meet us in one of the parks, we're just kind of, throwing back a few ideas, nothing very solid.
Or if you're local, they just want to meet us for dinner one night or
you
something.
just want to meet us out there, like hit us up, let us know, DM us. If you're
we should probably pick
local,
a night to do a dinner somewhere and just like be like, hey, show up.
God, wouldn't it be so funny if we all show up at Medieval Nights?
Oh my God, I've never done that. And I've always wanted to do it. You've never. I've always wanted to do Medieval Nights.
It's really, okay, it's cheesy, but I fucking love it.
Shit.
It's so
I've also
fun.
never been to a Renaissance park.
You never been to a Renaissance
festival?
festival?
I know. I've always wanted to do shrooms and go to one.
I don't know about shrooms. It's kind of ratchet. It's not really that magical enough to want to do. I'm telling you from experience.
It won't make you feel like you're transported back in
No,
time?
I honestly, not at a Renaissance festival. There's a lot of colorful characters.
Colorful characters.
I will never turn down a Renaissance festival. There's one actually at a local park close by to me. Mm-hmm. And it's currently going on this weekend and next weekend.
Let's go.
I'm going next weekend. I'm going to take the girls next weekend.
Let's go. I'll go.
Okay, let's do it.
Thank you for... yes, let's do it. I've never been. This Pop My Renaissance
give you a
Festival cherry.
It's a little ratchet. I'm going to say that ahead of time so you don't get... Yeah,
why?
because I feel like you're building up to do shrooms and no. Renaissance festivals.
If I'm going with my kid, I'm not doing shrooms.
No, well, yeah. First of all, you should take your kid because it's not a place you want to do shrooms at for sure. And
I can do shrooms anywhere.
I think you should think less of actually magical, and then think more of have you ever seen Role Models? That movie Role Models, where they're in the park playing with the swords and shit.
No, I don't think I've seen that movie.
It's kind of more like that. It's more. It's not as So
then why do you go?
Oh my God, we're going to take you to the Renaissance Festival next weekend. I really hope it's nice out. And because
the weather was nice today.
Listen,
it is Saturday, the day we're recording this. And I walked outside to let my dog out, and I was like, holy cow, fall has arrived. It's nice and cool and windy. It was 65.
My husband was like, oh, they said it was supposed to be cooler today. And then we stepped out and we're like, oh,
feels nice.
Yeah. So we're going to a Renaissance Festival next weekend. If anybody's local and wants to hit us up, we will be going.
What day? Next
Saturday.
Weekend. Next Saturday. Where is the Renaissance Festival?
It's in Hollywood. Just hit us up.
What park?
Just let us know if you want to go, and we got you. Let us know.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, so we'll go
and then
to
Disney trip in February 11 to 13.
Yeah, exactly. We still do our Instagram Live Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. You know,
join us, smoke with us, hang out.
Join us. We had a really good crowd this past Wednesday.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with Two Baked Girls.
Yeah,
because they're so awesome, and I think just they don't go live that often on Instagram, so their peoples were probably like, yeah.
I think so, but I also think maybe other people saw. I was
really surprised at them saying that people knew us and were like excited for them to be on our show.
On our show, we're like really on our show. We would be. We would probably think
vice versa.
Vice versa. Everybody would be like, "Oh, you're gonna have Two Baked Girls on your show?" Yeah. But
that was surprising. I was like, "Oh,
that was nice." I love them though.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Canada.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna rage.
We gotta plan that trip coming soon.
I also think maybe other people that knew us and knew them were like, "Oh my god, two bitches are oh my god, these four because it's four of us."
Yeah,
there's four bitches together on it alive. What are they talking about? And then we're talking about animals. That's all. We talked about animals. And I should have taken a picture of all the iguanas out of my yard because I was like, man, I gotta get a really good shot.
You gotta get a good picture
send
and
it to them because it is really.
No, post it in our stories.
We should.
And be like, if you were on that live, you know what we're talking about here.
I mean, like Florida be like, and then it's a ton of fucking iguanas.
It's crazy when it's a nice sunny day. They all come out and just like
they love it, right?
Sunbathe and put their little heads up in the air.
Yeah, they all sunbathe. It's insane. But anyways. We got some really interesting news for you guys.
Marijuana Moment was reporting that a Republican-led bill to legalize and tax marijuana emerges as alternative to Democratic measures. We know that we've been seeing the MORE Act and then the other one that Chuck Schumer and Booker were putting out last year. Was that earlier this year?
Yeah, it was
the 2 years have meshed together. So a new Republican-led congressional marijuana legalization bill is imminent. The measure is being framed by advocates as a compromise between simple descheduling as proposed by other GOP lawmakers and a wide-ranging comprehensive legislation that Democratic leaders are champions. This legislation is being led by Representative Nancy Mace from South Carolina. The measure titled the States Reform Act is currently being circulated among stakeholders for feedback and is therefore only in the preliminary, but a final version is expected to be filed later this month. This is yet another development in what has been proved to be an active year of cannabis reform on Capitol Hill. But the GOP angle is notable, as many have raised doubts about the prospects of Congress passing the far-reaching, large-scale marijuana bills that Democrats are leading in the House and Senate. Getting Republican buy-in could prove critical to getting something over the finish line. And the Mace measure seems aimed at appealing to the states' rights and business interests of conservative colleagues on her side of the aisle, while also incorporating some restorative justice and tax elements, largely favored by progressives. The freshman congresswoman who was the sole GOP vote in favor of cannabis research bill for veterans during a committee markup on Thursday is aiming to federally deschedule marijuana and create a regulatory scheme. But still ensure that existing state markets are not unduly burdened by the undermined new rules.
Here's a rundown of the details based on the draft legislation and summary documents. Cannabis would be federally descheduled and treated in a manner similar to alcohol. Okay, tell me more. A 3.75% excise tax would be imposed on cannabis sales. Revenue would support grant programs for community reentry, law enforcement, and small business administration aid for newly licensed businesses. The Treasury Department's Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau would be the chief regulator for marijuana with respect to interstate commerce. Food and Drug Administration would be limited in its regulatory authority, with the intent being that it would have no more control over cannabis than it does for alcohol, except when it comes to medical cannabis. The agency could prescribe serving sizes, certify designated state medical cannabis products, and approve and regulate pharmaceuticals derived from marijuana, but could not ban the use of cannabis or its derivatives in non-drug applications, like in designated state medical cannabis products, dietary supplements, foods, beverages, non-drug topicals, or cosmetics.
Raw cannabis would be considered an agricultural commodity regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The legislation would grandfather existing state licensed cannabis operators into the federal scheme to ensure continued patient access and incentivize participation in the legal market. As federal agencies work to promulgate rules, there would be safe harbor provisions.
I never seen that word before.
I know.
I'm like promulgate?
Promulgate.
What the hell?
Rules. There would be safe harbor provisions to protect patients and marijuana businesses acting in compliance with the existing laws. People with certain federal cannabis convictions that were nonviolent would be eligible for expungements. To prevent youth use, there would be a mandatory 21 age limit for recreational cannabis, and the bill also prescribes certain restrictions on things like advertising. Makes sense?
SBA would need to treat marijuana businesses the same as other regulated markets, like it does for alcohol companies, for example. The measure also stipulates that veterans can't face discrimination in federal hiring due to cannabis use, and doctors with U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs would be specifically authorized to issue recommendations for medical cannabis for veterans. Federal agencies could continue to drug test for marijuana.
Well, why?
I mean, I guess it really depends on what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics would be required to issue a report to Congress on the marijuana industry. Who knows also how developed the drug testing could be? I mean, because honestly, over the weekend, it sucks that it would affect you just period. Even if you do toke on the weekends and then want to go work.
Or even if you just, it's not like you're toking at work and stuff. If you're doing it when you get home and on the weekends, it shouldn't matter what you do, I think, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty loaded. Sorry. I went on a tangent there.
Did you say the Bureau of
Labor?
Yeah, I did. Okay. We got off there. So the draft bill is 116 pages. So these details represent just a portion of what's compromised in the legislation. And again, the provisions are subject to change as the proposal is finalized ahead of its formal introduction into Congress. The Republican-led effort sets the stage for some interesting debate. The advocates have already rallied behind measures such as the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, the MORE Act that we mentioned before. I know it's such
syllables and
marijuana opportunity
words.
Oh, Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. The MORE Act, to say simply, which recently cleared the House Judiciary Committee, as well as a reform bill that's being finalized on the Senate side, led by Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden, and Senator Cory Booker. It's unlikely that the champions behind those measures would want to cede the issue to a Republican-led bill, even if it does contain components meant to appeal to both Democrats and justice reform advocates. But it's possible the legislation will garner favor with industry stakeholders who are eager for a passable legislation proposal. Mace's legislation takes specific steps to preserve the markets that have already been established in states while ensuring that they have the resources to expand under federal regulations.
Some Republicans have led or joined their Democratic colleagues on other marijuana bills, but they've generally been far more scaled back measures, simply protecting states that choose to legalize or descheduling cannabis without touching social equity issues or creating a federal tax on sales. In any case, polling shows that the public is ready for an end to prohibition. 68% of U.S. adults said that they back legalizing cannabis in a Gallup poll released this week, and that includes majorities of Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
Yet, despite the support, President Joe Biden continues to oppose adult use legalization. Instead, he's supportive of more modest proposals to federally decriminalize cannabis, legalize the plant for medical use, and let states set their own policies. Whether he'd sign any Democratic or Republican-led legislation is up for question. While the president is personally against comprehensively ending prohibition, the Congressional Research Service released a report on Wednesday explaining steps he and his administration could take to repair the harms of cannabis criminalization.
Oh, I'd like to read those.
So, yeah. So now there's all these. That's the third.
Yeah, now the Republicans are like,
running.
We love weed too. We know it ain't going nowhere. Hear us out.
Here's our weed measures that we're willing to vote on.
Right.
So, like, do you guys want to join this boat over here? Because we're not going to vote on yours.
Can they not, like, get together to write something at the same time? Why does everybody have to write a thing here and a thing there? Can't they just be like, can't they just look at both of those things they wrote and say, okay, these are pretty much the same things. So let's just say, put those in the middle there. We all agree on these. All right, let's hash these other ones out and fucking figure it out and get the ball rolling.
And I guess that's essentially what the purpose of this is to do. That's the way I guess they do shit.
They're going to approach it like this.
Like everybody's got to do their own thing.
I see your note. Here's our note. Oh, yeah, we saw your note. It's cute. Look at this one. What do you think about this one? I mean, it's like such a back and forth on shit.
I don't know. We'll see. Let's see if it happens.
That's always, let's just see.
We're keep looking to the future.
We're just going to keep hoping for the best. In the meantime, we'll give you this. I love you, Wyoming. Florida Senate Bill number 744, medical use of marijuana by out-of-state visitors. We've talked about this before. When we've tried to give people information on like, hey, what other states accept your medical card? Like when you're traveling, sometimes you might, like let's say I want to go somewhere and I have a medical card here. You cannot do that here. You come travel to Florida,
they don't accept outside.
Then they're not going to accept your outside medical card. But maybe in the future, because we have a new bill
that they're introducing, you basically just have to register in advance.
Oh, okay. So it says medical use of marijuana by out-of-state visitors, requiring the Department of Health to create a separate section in the medical marijuana use registry for short-term visitors, establishing criteria for short-term visitors from states that have legalized medical marijuana to receive authorizations to possess medical marijuana and marijuana delivery devices in this state. Authorizing short-term visitors registered in the medical marijuana use registry to purchase and receive a specified supply of marijuana for medical use from a medical marijuana treatment center in the state. Requiring the department to immediately make available in the medical marijuana use registry the registration certificate of a short-term visitor. Providing that a short-term visitor's registration certificate serves as verification that he or she is authorized to possess, purchase, and use marijuana. Yeah, okay. Purpose. So now, so they're making you pre-register. They're going to scope you out.
Yeah, you can't come into the state and just show your other states.
Yeah, you're going to have to let them know ahead of time. You have to
register on our program saying, hey, and give proof that you have your medical card. And then they're like, okay. And there's going to be a fee associated with it. They're going to
they got to take a little piece or something. Right?
And this means that you're granted the permission for
this to this day.
Have cannabis while you're here, have any devices for cannabis while you're here, and you can actually purchase from our stores while you're here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. Where I signed up to track this bill to see where it goes.
Oh, that's what popped up on the email. I was like, what is this spam?
I
ain't tracking nothing.
I was registering us to track it.
Good to know. Good to know.
So next on the topics for I Love You Miami is Wonderland. Miami takes shape as the largest psychedelic medicine business event.
Oh, suddenly everybody's interested in this, huh?
Yeah, I mean, psychedelics has been in the headlines and in everywhere
recently,
lately.
A lot.
Yeah. So on November 8th and 9th, so that was just a couple days. We're on I think today this is being released on the 10th. So
this weekend
it happened.
Recording?
Yeah, this recording is being released on the 10th. So this was yesterday and the day before. If you're listening on the 10th.
Everybody's like, what? Who cares? It happened already. Move on.
It just happened. But it's interesting that it's happening here, I thought.
I know.
So on November 8th and 9th.
Adrian Arch Center, nonetheless.
Yeah, I wish I could attend. If I didn't have like a full-time job that I have to be in all day, I would definitely go to this. So Florida will host Wonderland Miami, the largest ever business gathering in the psychedelic medicine sector, presented by Microdose, a guide to the business of psychedelics. Wonderland Miami will be held at was was held at the Adrian Arts Center for the Performing Arts in downtown Miami, Florida. Wonderland featured 30 programming tracks, panels, fireside chats, networking, a Dragon's Den style pitch competition, and insights from speakers such as Rick Doblin, a PhD, founder and executive director of MAPS is the name of the program. Sorry, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies.
Try to say that when you're on psychedelics.
MAPS. It's interesting. I like the name MAPS. who will share insights and information and experiences. Also speaking will be Robin Cahart Harris, a psychologist. Dude,
I know it's a lot of like crazy words.
And neuroscientist and head of the Center of Psychedelic Research. Man, this sounds like it was a really cool event. A lot of like smart people that know a lot about psychedelics.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to absorb.
I think so. I mean, I think it's also meant for everyday people to learn. So Division of Brain Sciences Facility of Medicine of Imperial College, Cahart Harris, whatever. Lots of clinical companies that research this. But then there's some sports icons as well.
Mike Tyson, he's been championing for it lately, saying he wished he would have used it back when he was.
Yeah, he was there speaking.
Lamar Odom.
I don't know who that is.
He's a basketball player. There's a lot of.
And he was
Khloe Kardashian's husband.
Oh, he was one of that guy.
Yeah, the one that was hooked on drugs. I mean, I don't know. Is he like, maybe he's like recovering with cannabis
psychedelics
and psychedelics?
Yeah, no, there's definitely. That's probably what he's speaking to.
Yeah, I'm gonna check.
Who's
that
Anna
out.
Simmons?
I don't know who that is. Kelsey Ramsden, CEO of Mind Cure. A bunch of people. I mean, there's so many people here, so many doctors and stuff. That seems interesting.
Yeah, they're even talking. They go on to talk about how there's a lot of companies in psychedelics getting on the stock market, on NASDAQ and everything. They even mention over here psychedelics are in the spotlight thanks to people like Gwyneth Paltrow, Matthew McConaughey.
With her drink. Remember when we reported on her drink? She had a drink.
And a series such as 9 Perfect Strangers on Netflix. A number of...
Are they like now making that like a thing of like, oh, look, they did it on the show. This is like opening people's minds to this because of the show?
No, they're saying that there's been... It's just been everywhere. Gwyneth Paltrow's been talking about it. Matthew McConaughey's been talking about it. There's a whole show about it on Netflix.
Was great,
so it's like in the
if anybody
it was really
out
good.
There who needs a show.
And a number of public figures.
But they put 9 Perfect Strangers on Netflix. No, it's not. It's on Hulu, my friend.
Oh shit, you're right. It is on Hulu.
So
marijuana moment. Yeah, you gotta fix that.
No,
it's not on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. But great show, by the way.
Yeah, great show. Check
Obviously,
it out.
Whoever wrote this did not watch it.
Did not watch it.
But it's okay.
It's okay.
We should write them and be like, "Hey, bro, we know you didn't watch it because of this, but you should definitely watch it.
You should watch it."
Oh, look.
A number of public figures opened up recently about medicine.
Elon Musk,
Will Smith, Andrew Yang,
who
advocated for the veteran psychedelic use.
Okay, the political guy, right?
Yeah, he ran for president.
Yes.
He wanted to give everybody.
I thought it was a new guy on Saturday Night Live, and I'm like, this guy is also. What is this guy doing talking about psychedelic? Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Studies roll out every day touting the potential of psychedelic-assisted therapies, including psilocybin, ketamine, MDMA, and more. A number of investigations are looking at how psychedelics can help to reset negative patterns in the brain, such as addiction or depression. So,
look at that. We used to do this at concerts and festivals, and now suddenly all the doctors are like, oh, this is we can treat this and that with it. Meanwhile, we've been fucking doing this back in the day. I saw all of our raves
on Teen Mom.
Oh, Teen Mom.
One of the Tyler, Kate's husband, whatever, Teen Mom OG. He's using ketamine treatments to treat his bipolar.
Oh, I don't. I'm very ignorant. I do not really know what ketamine is. I'm not really sure.
It's like. The street term for it is like Special K.
Okay.
When people used to do Special K. But it's used for, what's it called? When you go under. But it's like going under, but not going under. It's called anesthetics.
Anesthesia, yeah.
So my son had to take it for when he broke his arm.
Oh
my God. I cried so much that night. it was so crazy to see my kid like that, like far gone on something, you know. Man. But they had to do it so that he
could set his
he
bone
didn't
right.
know what he was doing. They had to reset his bone.
Yeah.
But it's short. It's a short, like you administer it for a short period of time. It passes pretty quickly. And I guess there's some kind of treatment that they do for depression and and stuff like that, where they give you a dose of that and they have you like meditate and do certain things. And you have to journal what you saw. And
oh my God,
it's really interesting. I would like to see more about that. And I feel like this kind of event would be like where you would go to really hear.
I don't know. It seems fair. It seems, to be honest, it seems a little overwhelming. I don't know if I'd be able to.
You have to be a doctor or scientist.
I feel like I would want to maybe check out a couple of things on a little smaller scale.
Riley and Miyabi, can you guys go?
Oh my God, I'd love to. I could sit there and listen to them forever.
I know.
Yeah. Oh wait, we're gonna get them on the show back, right?
Yes, they're gonna be on again this season.
Later on this season. Yeah, so thanks so much for listening to us so far. We had a really cool conversation with Chris Sunshine from Sunshine Cannabis. He is local, homegrown, our age, because as soon as he started talking about the timeline of weed, I was like, oh, this dude is our age, because I remember weed like that too.
Yeah.
And turns out he's born and raised here just like us, and he's as old as us, and he's, you know.
Florida homegrown.
Florida homegrown, yeah.
Who advocates for home grow.
Who advocates for home grow, and we'll get into it a little bit with him and give you the information so you can help us in that fight to get illegal.
Free the plants.
Free the plants. Here's our interview with Chris Sunshine. So how did you start in the cannabis? Like, what was the first time you smoked weed? When was the first time you... When did your relationship start? Exactly. For real with cannabis?
Okay, it's a funny story. I didn't really get high the first time that I wouldn't even say that I actually smoked weed, but I was out. I grew up like on the canal. It was kind of like swamps and woods and stuff like down here in South Florida, and it was in between like Lake Ida. I don't know if you know where Lake Ida is in Delray, and then Lake Osborne is like Hypoluxo, Lake Worth area. So I grew up kind of in the middle of those two on like one of the big main canals next to a big park. And back behind the park were like all these swamps and like woods and trails. And it was just all wild, you know, it's just like wild, like Florida. And, you know, no one ever went back there. And I had a family member, actually who I called my brother, you know, that my parents helped raise. That was a relative of mine. And, you know, he lost his parents when he was young, and my mom and dad raised him. I called him my brother, you know, my brother John. And he used to grow like way back in the day. I mean, I'm talking, this was like the 80s, you know, this was the 80s. And I was just a little kid, you know. So I was probably like, I don't know, maybe 13. I would say I was probably around like 13. And I found this old book out in the shed, and I opened it and I was like looking through it, and there was this big sativa leaf, you know, and at the time I'd never seen a pot leaf, you know. I didn't know. I mean, I knew what it was, right? I mean, I knew what it was, but I'd never really seen one like
in real life. Yeah, you've seen drawings and cartoon kind of, yeah.
Right, and at the time I didn't know like, hey, this is like a pure sativa leaf. I mean, thinking back now, like you know, it's one of those memories like that's like burned into my consciousness, you know. I'll never forget, but it was this really long, skinny, like psychedelic sativa leaf with all these fronds. I think it was like 9 or 11 fronds, but it was, you know, it was big and it was old school. I mean, it looked like an old like Colombian or something, you know. It was very, very like much like a pure sativa. And he used to grow plants across the canal back in the swamps. And there was like these little trails from the canal. There was alligators nested back there and stuff. There was water moccasins and everything. I mean, it was pretty wild back there. And so I found that, and unfortunately it was kind of crispy and it was dried out, and I broke it. And then I was like, hey, let me burn this, you know, let me burn this, see what it smells like, right? Because now listen, I was a kid, right?
Yeah, you're curious about these things. You're like a little scientist.
I did not smoke weed. I didn't even start smoking weed after this, believe it or not. But I burnt some, right? And I smelled it, And I never smelled anything like that before. And it gave me a little tingle, you know, it was like, I felt a little tingle. I was like, and it wasn't even like that. You know, I'm sure there was no THC in it, you know, but there was terpenes, I'm sure.
But
like
wasn't, did you feel like you were kind of doing something you shouldn't do? And maybe that was kind of a part of the experience, is kind of like.
Yeah, it was very taboo. It was very, very taboo. And it was like, you know, and then like I was out on my porch, you know, and my mom was at work. And I remember the porch, you know, I was like, you know, I could smell it because I never smoked cigarettes. I really, still to this day, I mean, like I've never smoked a cigarette. I've really never even been into drugs, you know, so to speak. I always looked at cannabis as you know, it's a plant. So my very, very, very first exposure to cannabis was in the form of like this leaf, right?
Yeah.
And that was the first time like I ever touched pot, you know. It was to me, it was just pot back. It was like a pot leaf. And yeah, and I was like, man, am I high? I'm like, I don't know, am I high? You know, and I was like a little kid. I was a kid. You don't know, you know, you don't know. You think, you know, because I remember being in school and you know, we had like the Dare. You remember that?
Yes,
down here?
of course.
I don't know if you're from Florida, but it was Dare. Dare was big down here, you know, and it was just like these pictures of leaves, right? It was always like the picture of like the leaf with like the big red thing and like, you know, like
No.
Yeah, and it was like I was like, oh, well, that's what they do. Like they take the leaves and they people do the leaves, you know. And I didn't know. I was just I was a really young kid, and yeah, that was my very first experience where like I actually inhaled anything from the cannabis plant, touched it, and I burned it. Believe me. And I was like, you know, I don't know if you've ever done that with like a piece of hash or a bud. You light it, you know, and you just like, you know, I didn't have a pipe or papers or nothing. So it was a really innocent. It was an innocent thing. It was, you know, I found this leaf, and that was my first experience with cannabis, and definitely did not get high. Definitely didn't even really smoke anything. I just burned it. I smelled it. I touched it, you know, and then that to me, that was like, wow, I did pot for the first time, you know. But listen, I was a kid, you know, and I was always in trouble as a kid. I never wanted to go to school. Right? I never wanted to do homework. I was always getting suspended. I was always getting in, like, you know, written up. I was always the class clown, you know, and that was me not doing anything at all, you know. I mean, and growing up in South Florida, I had a lot of friends that did a lot of things, you know. People were smoking weed, people were drinking, people were out partying. Like I wasn't doing that as a kid, but there was like young kids my age that were like clubbing in Miami, you know, and with fake ID. You know, I was different. And that kind of launched me into like an interest, you know, about the plant. I think because the first time I saw it was the leaf, you know, and it was a really young, really early innocent thing. And I think I eventually talked to you know, to my brother John. He's no longer with us. We lost him last year to cancer, but he was cool. You know, he was cool, and he was older than me. And he was really into like rock and roll and music and play guitar and stuff, you know, and he definitely smoked some weed, but he was growing it.
He was growing it, yeah.
And later, my first plants that I ever grew were across the canal, were, you know, over in the woods. And I had a little John boat, right? And I grew up fishing. That was my thing. I was Mr. Bass Pro. I was out there fishing nonstop. I mean, still to this day, like you find a puddle, I'll catch a bass in it. I mean, that's just me. Like people know, they're like, oh, you're not catching fish, you know. Call Chris. He'll show you where the bass are. I think it's because I grew up out there. Like I literally was like one of those swamp kids, you know. I didn't grow up in like a big, nice, brand new house with clean AC vents and a brand new kitchen and everything fancy and like a perfect backyard with the white picket fence. I did not grow up in that. Like I grew up in a middle class neighborhood. We didn't have much money. My dad was a plumber, you know. My mom made like barely any money. She worked in banking, you know, as like a bank teller, and then later she worked you know, at a nursing home. Actually, she was a bookkeeper. But you know, we didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't have a lot of you know, I didn't have a lot of stuff to do really, other than fishing. You know, that was my thing. Like I love fishing, and I love being outside. I love being out like in the sunshine, and just like I had this little John boat as a little kid. And then as I got older, you know, I was like, you know, 16 to 17, I was like, hey, you know, and I was like, bought my first bag of pot, and I found some seeds in it, and I had this epiphany, you know, and I was like,
I can do something with these seeds.
Yeah. And it blew my mind, like that they left the seeds in it. And I was like, man, ask for these, like, I was like, they forgot them in here, I didn't know. And I remember, I was in the bathroom, and I had like one of my first High Times magazines, and like my mom's like knocking on the door, she's like, Chris, what are you doing in there? Chris, open the door. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to the bathroom, leave me alone. She's like, you better not be doing pot in there. She's like, what's that smell? And I'm breaking up a bag of weed. And now I still didn't smoke weed. Like, I literally bought some weed because I just was like, I don't know, I just had a fascination with weed. I was drawn to it, I was reading High Times and everything. And the guy down the street had some really, really fire weed, like some green bud, like red hairs. I mean, it was fire. It was like,
yeah, because back in the day,
Crippy.
Are you, hold on, wait.
Crippy?
Are you?
I got from eventually, believe it or not. It was a surfer guy down the street. It was the first time I saw Crippy and smoked it.
Yeah. I feel like, are you kind of around the same? How old are you how old are you?
Yeah,
I'm 40.
Yeah, you are, right. See, so yeah, back in the day,
we're turning 40.
We're turning 40. Yeah, this coming year.
I was born in 80.
82 here, yeah.
And yeah, in December, I'm a Sagittarius, so.
So back in the day when we first started smoking weed, it was like hard.
It was either reggies,
right? Reggies,
where is that pressed weed with the seeds, or you got the crippy,
and
which is
like
the fluffy
top of the
line,
buds, right?
And it had no seeds.
Right, and the crippy was always wet and sticky, and like I try to explain that to people. I'm like, they were selling it wet.
Yeah.
I'm like, because people that are crippy now, they're like, oh my god, this is just like what I used to get, but it looks different, it feels different. I was like, yeah, because we're actually drying it. We could just not trim it and sell it wet, and you could stick it to stuff just like you used to, would stick to the bag and everything. I mean, when weed is wet, it sticks to everything.
Yeah.
When you get your fingers all, like when it's properly dried and cured so that it doesn't, mold when it's being stored, because that's the thing, if you put damp weed in a bag or a jar and leave it, it's going to get moldy.
Definitely.
So I mean, obviously any medical, it has to be properly dried, cured. Listen, I would love to cut down a whole batch of crippy and do like a quick dry on it, just like a rough, just kind of luckily, and put it out like it used to be in the 90s, like that Florida fresh, sticky, icky, but it has to be under a certain acceptable moisture level. And, obviously it's got to go off to the labs and everything. So, there's a lot more oversight. And then obviously, the crippy now is being grown in much better conditions,
yes.
And more science. There's a lot more science, and precision environmental controls and nutrients and CO2 levels, all these things we didn't have back then.
What a difference.
So I got this bag of weed, right? And there was all these seeds in it. And I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to take over the world. I've got an endless supply now, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm going to grow. And I started some, and I started growing them out in the backyard. And as I would grow them out in the backyard, and we had this like above ground pool, because we can afford like an in-ground pool. And my dad, I think it was like one Christmas, he surprised us, and he like showed up, with this in his truck, and we all put it together. It took like a week to put it together, this above ground pool. And there was like all these like little areas around the pool, he put like this deck around it he built. And
I had one of those too. I know exactly what you're talking about. I had one of those too.
There was like little areas, like little nooks you could put stuff and hide it, like in the yard. Even when we had this big backyard, it was just like a big canal back behind us. And the only thing that went behind my house, there was the trains, like the train tracks was across the canal. So really, that's all I had to really worry about was like this train going by. Like there wasn't like helicopters and nosy neighbors.
Yeah.
And now this was like the mid 90s, right? So this was like, I don't know, 95, 96. And I started growing my first plants outdoors, right? And that's how I started. And my mom would catch them, would find them, and she would tear them. She would pull them out and be like, Grace, you can't grow pot. And it wasn't like we didn't have pot around us. Like, like my brother John smoked pot. Like I had an uncle who smoked like pot like nonstop. And it was around, so we weren't like, I wasn't surrounded by like anti-weed people, but my mom was just like, you can't grow this. She was right. I mean, she was right. I shouldn't have been, I shouldn't have, in hindsight, I mean, at that age, I shouldn't have been involved, I don't think, with it at all. Personally, I just think, I should have probably been focused on other things,
Well, but like really what people, only because of the stigma, because like it's a plant.
But I mean, personally, like my personal belief, and this is my personal belief, like, and I feel what I feel, and everyone's entitled to feel and do what they do. I really think that, you should wait unless you have a medical, like a medical need for it as a, as a youth. I really think it's better to wait like till like you're like 18,
For
I agree
sure.
100%. Now as a parent, I can feel that way, but I started at 14 the first time I tried it. And when I was 16, 17, 18, I was a regular user. Like, so, right. And I would hope that my child waits until at least 20, 21.
Or just at least till they're an adult. I mean,
yeah, 18 years old.
Feel like, historically, I've used cannabis to chill and like sleep, right? Yeah. Like I was never the guy that would like, oh, let's smoke some weed and go do fun stuff. I would be like, hey, obviously back in the 90s, like we were smoking blunts and stuff, and it was like we would smoke a blunt, everyone would sit around and do nothing and listen to music and be lazy, and we were just like,
yeah, I remember that.
We like didn't accomplish anything for the day. And like as I got into my later teens, I had a lot of issues growing up. Not so much. It wasn't really with weed. I just didn't want to listen to anyone. I didn't want to follow the rules. I didn't want to go to school, and all that. It really had nothing to do with weed, but it was just my personality type. Like the things that I was learning in school, like I wasn't interested in. I didn't see a lot of purpose in a lot of the things that they were trying to teach me. And kind of, I was bored. I was really bored in school, so. I took a different path than a lot of people I grew up with, and they had me in gifted programs as a kid. I had a really high IQ. I was smart. They tried to explain that. Of course, my mom's like, oh, he's just gifted. He's really smart. That's why he's getting in trouble in school. And like, no, I mean, the reality I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to do other stuff. I wanted to be out fishing, and I had a girlfriend. I wanted to be, I was like, oh no, I would rather, be with my girl or be driving. I had a Monte Carlo when I was a teenager. I think back then. We got our licenses.
When we were 16. Yeah,
15
yeah, even.
15's learner permit, right? And then 16 was licensed.
Right.
But at 15, you could already be driving.
I had a Monte Carlo with a system in it. I had a white 84 Monte Carlo. It was my first car. And I had a big system in it. Me and my friend, I put bass and amplifiers and everything. And I used to love driving around. That was just like cruising around. Once I had my car, right, and I could just cruise, like that was my thing. I would much rather so I got I got out of school early. I actually got my GED out of like 9th grade, and we lost my dad unfortunately to cancer when I was 16, like right before I got out of school early, and we didn't have much money. We really didn't have much money, and my dad didn't make much money to begin with, but he didn't have any insurance because he was like self-employed, as a plumber. He was like a private contractor, and we lost our house. Like we lost our house. My mom had to sell the house that I grew up in Boynton Beach, and I got out of school early, and I went and got a full-time job. Actually, I went and got a full-time job, and I was like 17. I was like 17 because it was hard times. It was really hard times. And that's when I kind of really got into growing. That's when stuff like stopped being like out back and across the canal, and it went indoors and it got serious. And I was like, hey, and I met my business partner, now Bob Sunshine, and I used to buy weed from him. Just go over to his house, and he had like QPs and pounds of weed, and triple beam balance scale in the kitchen, and he would let me pick out my own weed, and I would go over there buy an ounce. And
nice.
It was, it was mids. It was like mids that had seeds in it and stuff, but it was fire. It was better than what most people had. And I was flipping like little quarters and eighths of weed. I was a teenager, and it was like putting gas in my car and giving me money to buy Taco Bell and to like pay my. I didn't have a cell phone back then, but I had a pager. I had a beeper. I pay my beeper. All that's how I started, and then I really got into growing. Then I was over at Bob's house one day, his apartment, and I saw an electric cord going under one of the doors. Of course I dabbled already in growing, and I read High Times and everything. My mom she was cool. She used to always, when we would go to the bookstore, she would let me buy High Times, which I thought was great, as a kid. And I always felt like I was doing something wrong, reading High Times. I'd be reading, I'd be like looking around. You mean are the cops gonna get me? Like it felt so taboo, it felt so illegal. So I loved it because I'm a free spirit. If there's a rule, I want to break it. But yeah. So Bob had this electrical cord running under the door, and I was over there, and just I smelled weed in the house, and I knew he normally didn't have that there, and I hadn't been there in a while, and he was being kind of secret with me and not having people over, and I just I put two and two together, and I was like, man, what's under that door, man? I was like, what do you got going on in there? I was like, you growing in there? And he's like, no. He's like, I got an aquarium or something. I'm like, aquarium. I'm like, wow. I was like, bro, don't bullshit me, man. I was like, I know you're growing some weed in there. And he's like, all right. He's like, but you can't tell anyone. He's like, and the rule is if you tell one person, they're going to tell at least one other person, and that person's going to tell at least one other person.
Yeah.
So, kind of that golden rule of growing is like, don't tell anybody, because once you tell one person, like now they own you. They own you because they got that over you, no matter what. And you never know who's who and what's going to happen and who's going to, and I had some close calls growing up. I mean, once I got later in my 20s and I was growing and, doing stuff with breeding and genetics, I mean, I definitely had one or two, pissed off girlfriends, that I broke up with after trying everything, trying everything to make it work. And we broke up for whatever reason, went our separate ways. And it was the text and the calls, like, I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to turn you in. And I was like, oh, baby, please don't. I love you. Don't. Why would you? You promised me you would never do that. I mean, there was some close calls. There was some very, very, like, I escaped by, like, the hair in my chin. So, so Bob opened the door, showed me. And I had never, I never saw anything like this in my life. And
how many plants?
He had a whole bunch of plants. They were little, right? They were little. They were like in little Rockwell cubes, and they were on like on this flood and drain table, like ebb and flow. And it was elevated up off the floor. And he had I think he just had one 1,000 watt high pressure sodium lamp with like the big, the old school hoods, like this big like parabolic reflector over the table.
Oh my goodness!
It was hot. It was really hot in the room.
In his house?
Stunk like weed. Oh yeah, right in his upstairs apartment over here in Boynton Beach. And I drive past it sometimes. Sometimes we go past his old spot, and I'm like, man, that's where it all started. So he's like, I met this guy, named, and he's like, he brought me some clones, it got me started, and he was like, I'm just getting started, and I never really done this before, and like Bob wasn't really experienced, but he just kind of, he had a green thumb. And I was really more into growing than Bob was, because I read a lot of high times and I'd already kind of dabbled and done my thing. And, if you can grow plants successfully outdoors, which I did, like literally back in the swamps, you can grow anything.
And Florida climate isn't the best for it, is it? Like, is it too wet?
No, not at all. You got bugs attacking it. You got storm. You got animals. Now iguanas. I mean, try growing outdoors anywhere in South Florida where there's iguana. They find your plants. Like, it doesn't matter if you put a cage around them. They're going to get in there. They'll dig under just to eat your plants. Like, I know people who try to grow outdoors and they can't. Even out in the woods and stuff now in the swamps, the iguanas, they'll swim across the canal to go. They smell the plants and eat them. It's crazy. So, so Bob was growing, and then that kicked off a big chain of events because I, I was like, yo, let's get a spot, man. Let's rent out a bigger place, like let's grow. Let's be
business. You're like, let's do it.
That's where it really started, and we started growing. And this was a long time ago, and this was in the 90s still. This was like the late 90s, and that's when I started. And then I started ordering seeds from overseas, and I would order seeds from seed banks, and like nobody had like the named varieties back then. Like, when I was popping up with like the blueberry and the lights around here, and I was like a pump. No one had that. And people were like, they're like, and back then nobody knew, and people just really didn't know like what they know now. Like, now, I mean, there's so much awareness over terpenes and, aromatic compounds and different genetics. I mean, you talk to a grandma in Publix and you say, skunk or haze, and she's like, oh yeah, that's some good marijuana. It's like,
and legalization has done that. It's expanded it.
Right. So there's a lot of education and awareness. But I mean, back then, like I was popping up with these strains that nobody had, right? And a lot of people didn't have the access because they didn't have the genetics. But early on, I started ordering seeds from seed banks, and I took the risk. It was really risky back then. Like, they were seizing seeds in the mail, and they would get a search warrant on your house back then. If you were ordering seeds and they found seeds coming in, they would literally raid your house. I mean, now seeds are nothing. Seeds are everywhere. It ain't nothing. You can buy seeds on the internet. You can go to these cannabis events. People got seeds at tables. Like, it's nothing. It ain't no big deal now. And you go all over Instagram, people are selling seeds and clones. And, the plant has definitely has spread. Seeds and genetics are more readily available than ever before. But back then there was only a few places that you could really get things from.
Let me ask you this, because I feel like when it comes to home grow, I feel like government is kind of hesitant on that because they don't understand that growing is not as easy as some people think. What?
No, it's not.
When it comes to some people are just naturally good at it, obviously, like you. But what is a couple of key things that you would say with your expertise that is key to growing? Like, what are the key things? Because are there even, I know this is so complex.
No, that's a great question. Listen, the answer, like the magic answer is to keep it simple, right? Is the KISS. You've heard of the KISS rule, right? Like, keep it simple, stupid. It's just don't complicate it, right? So we're a lot like plants. Right. So what do we need? We need air, right? We need food. We need light, right? We have these basic needs, right? So you think about what a plant needs. It needs soil. It needs some kind of medium, right? Cocoa, like I would highly recommend, if you're going to grow, right, legally, no question.
We have listeners. I'm sorry, for the record, we have listeners. A lot of
from
listeners
all over,
are Florida, but we do have
that are in states where it's legal to grow.
Listen, if you're going to grow legally, like I said, if you're going to grow legally, we want everyone to keep it legal. I don't want nobody out there getting in trouble. I don't want anyone listening to me and then, popping all those seeds they got, getting in the drawer for a rainy day.
Finding them seeds on the internet. You just told everybody.
You got to be careful. No, listen, it's
you still
growing it. People are getting their doors kicked down still in Florida, especially. You can really get in a lot of trouble. It's a big risk. I would say if you're going to do it, definitely it needs to be indoors. Indoors, the success rate's exponentially higher than outdoors, especially in a subtropical and tropical climate like Florida. And I would say that you want to keep it really simple. You want to go with soil. I would amend, personally, if it was me, I would amend the soil with at least 50% like coconut core, cocoa fiber. It's because it retains a lot of moisture, and it's a medium that is just really, really beneficial plant roots, and cannabis excels, thrives in it. You can keep the media wet, with cocoa. And a lot of people, they'll make the mistake, because they want to do so much for their plants. Like, every day they want to look at it and touch it and poke at it and pour stuff on it, and they overwater. No, the number one mistake and I think issue that people face with home grow is that they overwater their plants. And they're afraid of them drying out because they're like, they see it kind of start to wilt. They don't understand that you want a natural, like a dry and a wet cycle, to kind of harden off the plants and allow the roots to fully form and everything. And kind of mimic like what the plant would experience in nature. You don't want to keep it soaking wet, because then what happens is, you end up with these anaerobic conditions, and the roots don't get oxygen, and all these different issues start to happen. The plants start to yellow, and get nutrient deficiencies because they can't uptake, the nutrients because of the overwatering. So with cocoa fiber, a lot of those issues cease to exist because you can keep the media wet, because the cocoa fiber retains so much oxygen, and it allows the roots they're permeated throughout it, and they really love the cocoa fiber. It allows there to be, an ample amount of oxygen, even when the media is totally saturated. So even if people are keeping the media wet and they're watering their plant like every day, they'll still most likely be able to have a successful harvest and healthy plants. A lot of people just growing straight cocoa. I used to buy like the like Fox Farm Ocean Forest was one of my favorite ones. I don't know if you're familiar with the different soils, or like there's one called Happy Frog. They're pre-mixes. Obviously you can get fancy. You can mix your own stuff, and use individual.
Right, but that would be like for when somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. Obviously, if you're just starting out, like you said, sometimes you get a little overzealous and start watering it. But yeah, like you said, keep it basic. Once I think you've mastered that, then you might want to start figuring out how you can yield more,
but
maybe.
I mean, it's simple. So a lot of people grow, and everyone says tomatoes, a lot of people grow tomatoes or peppers. If you can grow tomatoes or peppers successfully, you can absolutely positively grow cannabis successfully, and it can be healthy and it can be wonderful. The cannabis plant is no harder to grow than any other plant. In fact, I think it's easier to grow than most plants, because remember, this plant doesn't need you. It doesn't need me, right? This plant was here long before us. It knows what to do, right? We have to just not mess it up. So my advice is keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. So water and pH are key. Like that's I would say, like at the center of everything, right? The plant has to be able to take up nutrients. If the pH is too acidic or too alkaline, then you're gonna have conditions where there's deficiencies and there's gonna be uptake issues, right? Just like if your pH was off in your body, right? You get issues. A lot of people who actually suffer from inflammatory conditions, cancers, they'll have a very acidic pH in their body, and I'm sure you've read and seen a lot of stuff about alkaline diets, alkaline water. But for a plant, it's somewhere in the middle. It likes this. It likes the soil, and again, it depends upon the media. If you're growing hydroponically, if you're growing in rockwool cubes, you're growing even in cocoa. Cocoa core, which is the coconut fiber shredded, and that's really absorbent. You want it to be slightly more acidic. Whereas in soil it can be slightly more alkaline, but generally needs to be in the middle. It needs to be not too acidic, not too alkaline, just somewhere in the middle. I would say anywhere between between 6 and 7, right? Just as a very wide, broad range. Like if you're in between 6 and 7, like on the pH scale, and most people are like, well, how do I know that? Like, what the hell? Like, how do I test it, right? And it's as simple as just getting the little bottle with the little drops, right? The little drops, and on the side of the bottle, it's got the little, the little color scale, and you need to buy pH up and pH down. And this is like such simple, basic stuff. And most people will be like, oh, well, I don't know where to get that. And they won't bother, right? They won't bother. And I speak from experience. When I first started, and like, they'll have everything else right? They'll have good lights. They'll have good genetics. They'll have everything they need, right? They'll have AC, all the stuff in check, but they won't pay attention to the pH, right? Of their soil or the media. And, obviously, this is widely available information, that you can find online. You can Google now. I mean, we got YouTube, right? You got experts out there that make these multi-hour long series on how to do things, but pH is crucial, and clean water. When I first started growing, I would literally go to Publix and buy jugs of water, and I would caution people, like, don't use
tap water,
RO water. No, and definitely not tap water. I would use spring water. I've always been a big fan of spring water, right? Because spring water is it's living water. It's got minerals in it, and it's going to be slightly alkaline usually. If you don't have pH down, right, which is usually like an acid, to bring the pH down, you can just use lemon juice. Like for many years, like when I was growing organically, and I would obviously try to make everything like all natural and organic whenever I could, and which is pretty much all the time. I would use lemon juice, and I would just put like one of those like little bags on the lemons, like the little yellow, little stretchy little things, and cut the lemon in half. I'll put like maybe quarter teaspoon, half a teaspoon in a gallon of water, test the pH, and it would be perfect, and your pH is going to drift, especially in soil, as the plant uses up certain nutrients, and different nutrients are broken down. The pH of the soil will vary, will change. And that's normal. It's natural to have some drift in the soil. But I would just say that if you focus in on your pH and on clean water, right, then that's like 90% of it right there, right? Because as long as the plant's getting light, because you got to have a light source, as long as the plant's getting ample light, and you're not exposing it to really harsh, adverse conditions. It's not a room that's 100 degrees. And it's not like freezing, like outside in the snow. I mean, the cannabis plant is going to grow. It may not grow in an optimal
Optimally.
state,
Yeah.
right? It may not vegetate and flower like to its fullest genetic like capability and potential, but you can grow a healthy, successful plant. And then a lot of people out there who've never grown before, they don't understand that the plant doesn't just grow and grow, buds like we see them in a bag, And of course, when I was really young, you don't know, and you're like,
Right.
oh, when is it gonna grow buds, right? When is it gonna? And I hear this. People still ask us, so like, when does it grow buds? Well, I mean, it doesn't really grow buds. The plant flowers in an attempt to reproduce, right? So it grows these flowers, and the female plant grows the, what we know as buds, right, and flower, and the male flowers occur, separately, obviously on separate plants, and the plant is photoperiod dependent, so it's going to start flowering. You initiate flowering by having the plant in 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light, right? And then that allows this buildup of a flowering hormone that causes the plant to initiate flowering, to initiate reproductive growth, and you can't interrupt that light cycle, because if you interrupt that light cycle, right, and so you flick the lights on to look at them, or there's light pollution, from some other ambient lighting or something, then you can mess up the flowering cycle. But your plants take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks to flower, to grow actual cannabis before it can be harvested and then dried and cured and actually used.
Yeah, but it's like it really is it's a real detailed process, because then you can't, when it buds, you can't just cut it and smoke it. You have to.
No, yeah. I mean, you can use it to make edibles. You can use it for extraction, right, for oil. There's a lot of different things that people do with cannabis other than smoke it. I mean, I recommend vaporizing, and I really do. I highly recommend
the flower, or do you mean like the oil?
Whole flower. I mean, if look, I burn flower, right? I combust. I smoke flower here and there. I don't smoke a lot of flower. I don't really have a high tolerance. I'm more of a connoisseur. I'm definitely more of a grower than I am a hardcore smoker. I mean, I don't smoke weed all day. Like, I have friends and people around me that smoke weed from the time they wake up till the time they go to bed, and they'll wake up in the middle of the night and smoke weed. I can't do it. It's just not, it doesn't work for me. I've never done that. For me, it's really medicinal for me, and it helps with relaxation and sleep, and I'll hit, like an indica, like our Northern Lights, or like our Crippy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hit a bowl, hit it a couple times, once or twice, sometimes 3 times, get a couple good hits at night, and chill out, relax, turn the ringer off on the phone, turn the lights off, and
turn the phone
bed,
off.
Finally get to sleep, right? And that's kind of how I use cannabis personally. I use it to kind of wind down and chill out, because in some situations less is more, but believe me, I've been front row at the concert, VIP, with the weed I grew at home right back in the day, and smoking big fat spliffs and passing them around everyone, and getting stoned at the shows. I mean, yeah, believe me, I did that.
It's a celebration, bitches. It's a celebration.
Well, how did Sunshine Cannabis come to be? How'd you go from growing at home and in the swamp and those roots that you have to breaking into the Florida MMJ, legal production, like breaking into the cannabis industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely didn't break into it. I mean, we grew into it. It's a perilous journey. I mean, I've got people that love me out there, that run up and hug me, that I've never met before, that tell me I saved their life. Your products have saved my life. I don't know what I would have done without your products. And I got people out there that I've never met, that don't know me from Joe Schmo on the street, and they hate me. They hate us. They're like, yeah, you sell out, you this, that, and curse you this, and you did this, and you did. I'm like, man, I've been doing this a long time, like before we became legal and started doing stuff with Trulieve, and I think there's some misunderstandings out there, for sure, about our position and everything, and like what we have and what we do and what we can't do. I don't have a license, right? So, I couldn't get a license, just like everyone else, right? And in reality is, seeing the cost, right, and the scale, and how difficult it is to run a vertically integrated cannabis company. Like, I mean, you literally have to have a huge grow facility. You have to have a lab and processing facility. You have to have retail facilities. You know, you have to have like HR and marketing,
packaging,
and there's all. It's a huge, I mean, enormous. You know, to be at the scale and to obviously serve the customers and give the access, right? Like the first thing we talked about, access, to give the access to the people that people deserve, right? Which is like everyone in Florida, right? I mean, because you don't want to sell something and just have like one little shop down south and then everyone else in Florida can't get it, right? Because they can't drive down there and you can't send it through the mail. So it wouldn't really be fair. So, you know, it's a huge undertaking at scale. You know, I think we're really blessed. We're really blessed that the stars aligned, and that, you know, all the little twists and turns and everything that ever happened, and all the failures and all the successes, everything in my life that I, you know, many which were really hard fought battles. You know, I mean, I'm lucky to be here. Believe me, I'm really lucky to be here. I've had some major setbacks in life, and you know, a lot of loss and heartbreak, you know, and tears of joy and laughter and success. I mean, it's been a roller coaster. Believe me, it's been a roller coaster. But sure. I always knew that this was what I wanted to do. You know, I always knew. This was ever since I first held that leaf. You know, it was like I was drawn to this plant, and I knew that it was what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. That was my dream. And you know, you always ask the little kids, you know, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, a doctor. You know, I want to save people. I want to save lives. And cannabis has allowed me to do that. And we have absolutely saved thousands of people's lives without question. I mean, I have testimonials and stories that people send me, like, it's almost every day now. And, you know, they're like, I used your, you know, your Afghan Moon or your Sunshine Haze to get off benzos and, you know, to prevent seizures. And I stopped drinking. You know, I was an alcoholic for 20 years and I switched to pot, you know, and I could finally get my medical marijuana card in Florida. And I never used it before because it was illegal and I didn't want to go to jail and lose my job. And I could drink alcohol legally, you know, and people send me their whole life story and they're like, I used your product and it saved me. They're like, and it's what I rely on. And it's what I use to go to bed at night and to get to sleep instead of taking sleeping pills, you know, and dangerous, harmful, potentially addictive pharmaceuticals. We have a lot of veterans that use our products, a lot of people with PTSD, a lot of people who got off benzodiazepines, which are extremely dangerous, and very addictive and very hard to withdraw from. And you know, one of the products a lot of people have used successfully is our Sunshine Kush, which is a ratio product. It's got a little bit of CBD in it. You know, it's an 8-to-1, and it's got, you know, Kush profiles. Obviously, it's a vaporizer, but also our indica everybody's heard of, and you know, most people have tried, the Afghan Moon.
That's my favorite out of the vape pens.
Yeah, it's nothing else is like it. I mean, and we have people that move here from other states, and they're like, listen, they're like, I read the reviews online. Trust me, like I Google it and I go read the reviews, and people are like, I smoked everything from every company. I lived in Colorado, I lived in California. The Afghan Moon indica vape, like nothing's ever been like that. You know, nothing's ever worked for me like that. And I think that you know, for me, it's like, if something doesn't work, like, I don't care if it has some fancy, cool, you know, dessert name. Like, that's the new thing. Like, everyone's got the peach, apple, cobbler, pineapple, triple, sideways, sidewinder, mousse on top with a cherry, maraschino, surprise. You know, there's all these crazy strains. And it's like, yeah, but what's the medicinal value, right? Like, I want to see the terpene profile. Like, what about the flavonoids in it? You know, and I mean, I go really deep into our strains, and our selection process definitely varies. You know, depending upon what we're looking for. And a lot of our strains really target individual monoterpenes that, you know, are very medicinally beneficial, you know, and that's why, you know, we came out initially and on all our packaging, it said Sunshine is the best medicine. And it's true, right? And love us or hate us, like I've yet to see someone out there be like, Sunshine doesn't have the most medicinal strains, because we do. We really do. Like, whether it be our vapes, our flower, you know, we truly have focused on real medicine and terpene profiles that really benefit patients that have real needs, right? Because not everyone just wants to get high. Trust me, I understand there's a lot of people that just want to get stoned, and that's totally 100% fine with me, because I believe you should be able to use cannabis for whatever the hell you want to use it for, right? If you want to stand on your head and smoke weed because you're an American and you're an adult, then more power to you, you know, and please tag us in the video on Instagram. But if you have a condition, you know, if you have MS, you know, multiple sclerosis, or you have epilepsy, right? Or you have severe migraines, or you have cancer, right? I want to be able to provide strains and terpene profiles, right? And flower, because we sell more whole flower now than anything. You know, I want to be able to provide strains that really will benefit you and will really work. And if you buy an indica from us, I want it to work like an indica. You know, I don't want it to just have a cool fancy name and we put it out there because it's got the highest THC. That's not how we roll. Mm-hmm. That's not Sunshine Cannabis. If you've ever tried our stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Like our hybrids, like our Blue Sunshine, for instance, like it's like the perfect hybrid. And if you look at the terpenes, it's got all the major terpenes, just like a good hybrid should have. And it doesn't like wake you up and you're not like wide awake and like, you know, it's not all zippy and paranoid, and it's not like it won't knock you out and put you to sleep. It does what a good hybrid should do, right? Which is kind of be like the middle of the road. And it's very medicinal, you know, it's very medicinal. It's definitely got some uplifting qualities to it, but it's still effective for like pain and inflammation and appetite. You know, and like our indicas are really, really medicinal and soothing, calming. You know, they're good for anxiety and pain and sleep. Like our Northern Lights, I mean, that strain, or the pheno, I mean, it's a 1 in a million pheno that I found. And that was very old seed stock. That seed stock was from the very first strains that I ever ordered from overseas, from the Sensi Seed Bank. It was Northern Lights number 5. And believe me, it's changed a lot over the years now, what they're selling is Northern Lights. But I found my best plants and I didn't separate them at the time, and it made more seeds, and I saved the F2s, right? And well, I guess it would have been an inbred line because Northern Lights is, you know, a very, very old line. But that's where that plant eventually came
I knew
from.
it.
Those were old.
When you guys released that strain, I was like, it took me back to the 90s when I first started smoking cannabis, because I remember one of the first ever like named strains I was ever to get was Northern Lights. Right. Other than that, we never knew what it was, but like there was like, oh, we got this stuff that's called Northern Lights, you know, check it out. And it was really good stuff, and I really enjoy you guys' Northern Lights. It like took me back.
I love it. Oh, and it is. It's old school, and you know a lot of our strains. I mean, a lot of the plants. I mean, there's a lot of history. Obviously, you know, we didn't create it, right? But we're growing it, and we have it, and nobody really created this stuff, right? And there's a lot of controversy out there about like, oh, well, you know, you didn't create this and you didn't make this. And it's like, no, and neither did you, and neither did the guy before you, and neither did the, you know, the guy that was living on the side of a mountain in Afghanistan, right? Where the seeds came from. He didn't make it either. Guess where it came from?
Mother Earth.
Where did it come from? The creator, from Mother Earth, from the universe, right? Yeah. So it's nobody's, right? It ain't mine. It isn't yours. It isn't True Leaves. It isn't Sunshine Cannabis. It isn't the guy that's pissed off because he says I'm the original breeder and I.
It's crazy though, but a lot of these people who talk all this shit, they're not in it. They don't do a lot of shit talkers. It belongs
to everybody.
Yeah, a lot of shit talkers aren't doing anything.
Well, they're watching. They're watching.
But that's all they do. They watch and they talk. That's all they do. They don't do anything else.
That's okay, because you know everyone has a role. Everyone's got to play their role. So you know, my role is I'm not new to this. You know, like I just recently I started saying this. I'm like, I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. I've been doing this for a long, long time. And if you run into people that knew me when I was a little kid, right? I was a teenager, but to me now, you know, at 40, I feel like I was a kid.
Yeah,
right. I was a jit.
Jit. That was the term.
Jit, you know. And I had the weed, I had the killer, you know? So, I mean, I've been doing this for a long, long time. This is what I do. This is what I do best. And I'm very, very mindful of, like I said, the medicinal value. I mean, I've learned a lot over the years. You know, you really have to do something well, you have to do it a lot. And you have to make mistakes. You have to listen to other people.
For sure, but I definitely, we're not pioneering it, but we kind of are, in the sense that like you almost got in trouble a million millions of times to be able to get here. So a lot of people in the industry who have
there was a lot of
so there's a lot of people in the industry who have been risking their, freedom to try to learn more and do more with the plant and get it into more hands, like you said. And then, there's the critics who will say like, oh, well, you didn't invent the stuff. But like, yeah, everything is kind of like, everything's a remix now, and it's just your spin on it. And so what would you say to people who are trying to get into the cannabis industry? Because some people would say like, yeah, it's super saturated. But like, you could still be successful in the
Florida,
cannabis
it's
industry.
really hard because of the vertical integration.
Yeah, Florida, and that goes back to our thing with the licensing deal. I mean, nothing is stopping anybody from starting a brand, right, and doing exactly what I've done. Now, I don't think anyone will ever do what we did, right? I mean, there's only one Sunshine Cannabis. It was like a tiny little, like opportunity in history that just presented itself.
The universe aligned for you.
I mean, things really did align, and I had a couple really rough years before it did, and it was almost like I feel like God, like I believe in God, I feel like God was like testing me. I really do. I feel like God was testing me, and I always have been I'm a good human. Like I can confidently say that I sleep good at night. I do good in life. Like I help people. Like I've never really wronged anybody. I don't owe anybody any money. I don't rip nobody off. I don't hurt nobody. I'm a good person. Like I go out of my way to do things and help people because that's who I am inside. And I feel like all the rough patches that I went through and all the tough breaks in life, feel like, like things just finally aligned and they made sense. And everything that I had done up until that point, it was like I was getting ready for this, And it was like my mind, my body, my experience, just everything, because it's a lot of stress. Like this is a very stressful industry. It's a stressful business, because there's politics. There's a lot of politics.
Oh, for sure.
Involved.
A lot of red tape.
A lot of stuff. Hoops you have to go through.
There's a lot of, you got to deal with haters, right? You got to learn how to manage haters right now. I embrace haters. Listen, shout out to my haters. Like I love
they're listening.
Keep our name at the top of the conversation. Keep saying, keep posting it.
But you know what?
It benefits you.
No, but at the end of the day, if you got haters, that means you made it.
That means you're doing good.
Anytime we get some hate, I'm like, oh, all right, we deserve it. Like, I mean, we're doing good for ourselves now.
I never had haters growing up. We didn't do that. I mean, as you know, down in South Florida, like you don't do that. It's just that's not how it is down here. Like you got an issue with somebody, you address it heads up, and it's like you got to squash it. You don't want beef. You don't want that lingering. And now like there's people out there that just don't. They don't like us for whatever reason because we got a deal and we made it. But some of those same people were rooting for us before I made it, right? And then it's like, and then you get right, you get it, and you make it, and all the things you said you were going to do, you really make it materialize, and then they feel some type of way about it. So I want everyone to be successful, but the reality is, right, because I'm a very realistic person. The reality is, not everybody's going to be successful.
Right.
Not everybody's going to start a successful brand, right? Not everybody is cut out for this, right? Not everybody's built for this. I am, right? This is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I'm going to be involved in plant medicine, whether it's cannabis, right? Or whether it's other, natural, holistic, plant-based medicine and cures and things like that. I mean, I have a broad interest in much more than cannabis. I'm someone who always studied like medicinal plants and science, biology, and I'm into crystals and energy, and I'm full blown full blown hippie.
Hence the tie dye designs.
And I'm a weird mix. I mean, because I grew up in South Florida, very multicultural, environment, and and lots of hip hop influence, and obviously a lot of surfing and boating and fishing, and then
Florida boy,
cannabis, medicine, and then now the internet, right? The internet and marketing and all this stuff. I mean, it's a weird combination. It's a weird combination of a lot of things that I do, right? That I do just from these wild twists and turns in life. And it's almost like if you ever watch that movie you watch Forrest Gump, I'm sure.
Of course.
Forrest Gump,
classic.
These things happen, right? That's one of my favorite movies. All these things happen and you almost can't believe it. And you're like, what? He was where? And oh my God. And like, 10, 20 years later, like this lines up because of this thing that happened back then. That's how my life has been. And like, I will actually, there's no question. There will be I'll have to write a book.
But you know what?
People won't believe it.
But it's all because like, right, the journey, like that they say, like, enjoy the journey, because like, it's not where you're going. It's not the destination. It's the journey. And a lot of times you get involved or you start doing something and you don't really know what that's going to turn into, but you know that you really want to do that. So you keep doing it and you don't really know what part of it is going to be successful for you until the planets do align for you. And then you just, you get opportunities.
And it happens.
And it's just, it really is life. But you also got to work hard too, right? So you can't just think everything's going to happen.
You manifest it by working hard.
And we hope you enjoyed our interview with Chris Sunshine. You can find him at Sunshine Cannabis on Instagram, or you can email him, chris@sunshinecannabis.com. And regulateflorida.com, you can print off, just like we talked about, you can print off
your
the petition, sign it, and send it off. And you can
tell all your friends.
I know you can print off a bunch of copies and tell a couple of your coworkers and have them sign and just pack them all together, send them. Or if you know what, go to the dispensary, go to True Leave and drop them off.
Mm-hmm.
So we can all get this shit going,
They're trying to get it
guys.
done by the end of the year, so get those signatures in.
Do it. Thank you guys so much for listening to us and hanging out with us on Instagram Live Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Sorry to all of you who always happen to miss us, but we're in the Florida coast, East Coast. Come join us and talk about what you liked or what you didn't like about the show. You patrons, you make this shit happen. Thank you so much. You guys give us just the support to do this and keep doing this. So thank you. If you want to become a patron, you can go to potsmokingmoms.com. You get early access to our episodes, no commercials, additional content. You get extra full uncut versions of our interviews, Zoom sessions, all kinds of stuff. Some of our patrons include wonderful people like Yanni, Destiny, Lauren, Jesse, Christy, April, Shelby, Denise, Liza, and Natalie.
And Meredith.
Meredith. And she's been around for a while, but she's a patron now.
How do you go?
She's day ones.
Day ones, yeah.
Ride or dies.
Day ones.
And also, anytime we have a question about any kind of weird movie.
Or any pop culture,
pop culture,
stuff, she's got it.
She's got it. She is our... What is it? The phone call on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah, your phone a friend or whatever.
She's our phone a friend.
We need your number on speed now if we ever go on that show.
Exactly. Subscribe, rate, review, and share our content. Thank you so much. We love you. PotSmokingMoms.com. Bye.
Bye.